What if the last story your father ever told you revealed that he wasn't who you thought he was? In a dying breath, Papa Aneo shares a mysterious African folktale, a boy with no shadow, a village that speaks in silence, and a betrayal so deep it echoes into real life. But what if that folktale wasn't fiction at all? Stay with me. This story will break you and heal you at the same time. The room was quiet, too quiet. 12-year-old Kambili sat cross-legged on the mat beside her father's bamboo bed. Her large brown eyes stayed fixed on his face, half hidden in shadow. Outside, the crickets chirped like they were whispering secrets to the wind. Her father, Papa Aneo, coughed softly and smiled despite the pain. Kambili, tonight I will tell you a story I've never told anyone. It's my last story to you. Kambili blinked, her small hands trembling. But Papa, what if you get better? He looked at her, the way only a dying man could look at his child, with love too heavy to carry. Just listen. This is not just a story, it is our story. Papa Aneo's voice shifted as if carried by ancestors. Long ago in the land of Akpaka, there was a boy named Obina who was born under a cursed moon. He had no shadow. People feared him. Elders whispered, "A child with no shadow walks with the spirits." Mothers clutched their babies when he passed. But Obina was gentle. He helped the old cross rivers and told jokes to crying children. Yet, no matter what he did, the villagers rejected him. He grew up lonely, Kambili, just like a tree in the desert. Kambili's eyes were wide. She didn't speak. She couldn't. One day, Obina climbed the hill of Neka the seer, the woman who spoke with fire and knew the stories of the stars. "Why do I have no shadow?" he asked her. She didn't answer. Instead, she gave him a drum carved from Irako wood. "When the time is right, beat this drum once, and you will find what you've been missing." Obina returned home confused, clutching the drum, waiting for the time to be right. Back in the real world, Papa Aneo paused, coughing blood into his cloth. Kambili held his hand tighter. "What happened next, Papa?" He smiled weakly. "Tomorrow night. You must rest. The tale must come slowly, like rain before a storm." "Thank you." Here's the continuation of the emotional journey. The next night the moon was low, heavy with secrets. Kambili sat quietly, hugging her father's wrapper close. The kerosene lamp flickered as if it too was listening. Papa Aneo's voice came slower now, but steadier. "Kambili, every child has a shadow. But Obina, he was born when two stars collided. Long ago in Akpaka, a powerful hunter named Ikin married a woman from across the river, a Maka of the forest people. Their union was taboo. The elders warned Ikin. No good can come from mixing blood with the ones who speak to animals. But Ikin loved her fiercely. When a Maka gave birth under an eclipse, the villagers gathered and gasped. The baby had no shadow. Frightened, they called the child Aho Nwa, an evil child. The chief declared, "Let the boy be cast out. Let him grow where the land forgets." But Ikin refused. He raised Obina in secret, deep in the forest, away from scorn and shame. Papa Aneo paused, his voice trembling. "Sometimes, love is not enough to shield us from pain, Kambili." Kambili swallowed hard, her brows furrowed. At 16, Obina had only known trees and silence. But the questions inside him had grown louder than the birds. "Why do I feel empty? Why do I feel invisible?" He remembered the drum Neka gave him and finally beat it once. Boom. The sound echoed like thunder through the forest. Suddenly the wind spoke back. "To find your shadow, walk to where the sun bleeds and the earth listens." He packed nothing but the drum and a mango leaf for shelter. On the 5th day, Obina reached a river that shimmered like glass. As he bent to drink, a voice rippled from the water. "Do you know who you are?" He saw not his face but his father's, Ikin's face in the water. "You are more than the shadow you seek." Obina turned away, confused and afraid. What did it mean? "Sometimes," Papa Aneo whispered to Kambili, "we chase what we think is missing, only to find it was with us all along." Kambili nodded slowly, wiping tears from her cheek. "Papa, is Obina still looking for his shadow?" Papa Aneo smiled. "He's closer than he knows." "Absolutely." Episode 3 will deepen the emotions, raise the stakes, and begin to blur the lines between Papa Aneo's folktale and his real life. This is where hearts begin to break, and truths begin to emerge. Kambili hadn't blinked in minutes. The lamp had long gone out, but she didn't care. She was holding her papa's hand, so cold now but still gently squeezing hers. "Papa, last night I dreamed of Obina." He was crying. Papa Aneo nodded weakly. "Then you are ready for the part that hurts." The fire in his eyes returned for just a moment. After walking for 7 moons, Obinna came upon a strange village. The people there wore bright beads and smiled without speaking. They danced but made no sound. A girl with golden tribal paint on her cheek stepped forward. Her name was Adaoma. She offered him a drink made from hibiscus and tears. "Welcome, Shadowless One. We have been waiting." For the first time in his life, Obinna felt seen, valued. Oh. They treated him like he mattered, Papa said. But not all that shines is safe. Days turned into weeks. Adaoma and Obinna grew close. She told him he was the one the prophecy spoke of, the child who would bring back the village's lost voice. But there was a catch. "For our voice to return," she whispered one night, "you must give us what you value most." Obinna didn't hesitate. "Take my drum," he said, "it's all I have." That night they danced under the red moon. And for the first time the village sang. A beautiful, haunting melody that rose into the stars. Obinna laughed. But when the sun rose, his shadow was gone again. Adaoma was gone too. So was the village. He was lying alone. The drum broken in two. And in his chest, a hollow throb, like something inside had been stolen. "They never wanted to help him, Kambili," Papa said, his voice cracking. "They just wanted the last thing he had." Kambili was now crying. She couldn't hold back. Why would anyone do that to him? Why would someone pretend to love just to take everything? Papa Aneo's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because sometimes, the ones who claim to love us are the ones who break us the deepest." There was silence. Then Kambili asked the question she had feared for days. "Papa, are you telling me this story because you're Obinna?" Papa's eyes filled with tears. "I was a boy with no shadow, Kambili. No family. No home. I found it when I met your mother. And when she died, I lost it all again." Papa's cough returned, harder this time. Blood stained his wrapper. "You have to hear the end," he gasped, gripping Kambili's hand tighter. "Because Obinna's story isn't over yet." The night thundered outside. But inside, the true storm was only just beginning. Obinna wandered, broken and barefoot, through the thickest part of the forest, where the sun refused to shine. The drum was gone. His shadow was gone. Even hope had fled. He fell by an ancient irako tree, the bark shaped like a weeping face. "Let me die," he whispered. "I was never meant to exist." As he closed his eyes, ready to surrender to the silence, a raindrop kissed his forehead. Then another. And then, a voice. Soft. Familiar. "My son, you were never shadowless. You just didn't know where to look." Obinna opened his eyes. There, kneeling beside him, was his mother. Amaka. The forest woman. Long thought dead. But she looked the same, glowing, ageless, surrounded by the scent of wet leaves and love. "They said you were gone," Obinna cried. She smiled, brushing his hair gently. "No child of mine walks alone." Amaka helped Obinna sit up. From a pouch around her waist, she pulled out a mirror made of obsidian stone. "Look," she whispered. Obinna stared into it. He saw not just his reflection, but every moment he thought he was invisible. Giving a lost child food in the rain. Carrying firewood for an old woman. Hugging his father after a long hunt. Each memory shimmered, and each showed him with a shadow. "It was never missing," Amaka said. "Your kindness was your shadow. It lived in others." Obinna wept. The forest wept too. The rain became music. Papa Aneo paused here, coughing hard. Kambili ran for water, but he waved her back. "Let me finish." Kambili stared at her father. "Papa, were you ever really loved?" Pause. A tear. Then a nod. "By one person. Your mother." He reached under his pillow and pulled out a tiny wrapped cloth. Inside was an old wooden carving, a broken drum. The same one from the story. Kambili gasped. "Wait. Papa, that's Obinna's?" He smiled faintly. "It's mine." The room seemed to stretch as if the walls knew what was coming. "Kambili, I told you the story not just so you'll remember me, but so you'll remember who you are." The thunder outside cracked like the sky itself was grieving. "When I die, bury me with the drum," Papa whispered. "But keep the mirror. You'll need it." Kambili leaned down, holding his hand to her cheek. "Papa, please, just one more story." But his eyes were already drifting shut. "There's one last chapter," he breathed, "but you must live it. Thank you for staying with this story to the end." Episode 5 brings everything full circle. Love, loss, legacy, and leaves you with a deep emotional truth that lingers long after the final word. The morning sun bled gently through the cracks in the mud walls. Birds chirped softly, unaware that the world inside Kambili's hut had stopped turning. Papa Aneo was gone. His hand, still curled around hers, had gone cold in the night. His lips held a faint smile, like someone who had finally rested after a long journey. Kambili didn't cry immediately. She simply stared at the broken drum and the black obsidian mirror he left behind. "He told me to live the last chapter," she whispered. And so, with shaking hands, she wrapped his body just like Mama once showed her. She buried him beneath the mango tree where he first taught her to walk. She placed the drum in the earth with him. But the mirror? She tied it around her neck. Weeks passed. The village gossips wondered why a girl would walk alone to Akpaka, Papa Aneo's birthplace. But Kambili had heard the story too many times to forget. The boy with no shadow, he came from Akpaka. When she arrived, elders sat in silence as she told the tale, her father's tale. Some remembered the name Obina, though they had buried him in shame. Kambili stood tall before them. He was not cursed. He was loved. He was light. She raised the obsidian mirror. In its reflection they saw not her face, but their own guilt, their forgotten kindness, their lost children. Some wept. And for the first time in decades, the drums in Akpaka sang again. Years later, Kambili became a storyteller, her voice rich, her eyes wiser than her years. Children gathered around her fire every night, begging, "Mama Kambili, tell us the story of the boy with no shadow." And she would smile. "He wasn't shadowless," she'd begin. "He simply hadn't found his reflection in others." She told the tale of her father with fire in her voice and water in her eyes. And when they asked, "Is it real?" she'd place the mirror in their palms and whisper, "Look for your kindness. That's where your shadow lives." Moral lesson. We spend our lives searching for meaning, for recognition, for love. But sometimes, our truest reflections are not in mirrors. They are in the lives we touch, the smiles we shape, the pain we help carry. Like Obina, like Papa Aneo. Sometimes we are not broken. We are simply waiting to see ourselves through another's eyes. And when we do, we are never truly gone. We become a story. One that breaks you and builds you again. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to this channel for more interesting videos like this.